Welcome to Garden Delights. I'm Susan Howington, Family Consumer Science Agent with the Henry County Cooperative Extension, partnership with the University of Georgia Cooperative Extension. Today we're going to be talking about something a little different probably that you've ever seen around the area, and this is what we call a candied roaster squash. And we're also going to hear from Frank Hancock, and he's going to have a special guest that he's going to be interviewing. So we'll see you back in just a little bit on Garden Delights. Welcome back to Garden Delights. Today we're talking about something probably different than what you've seen around this area, but I will say it was grown right here in Henry County by one of our vendors at the farmers market, and this is called a candied roaster squash. And you know, looking at it, you're thinking, what? A squash? But actually it is a squash, and it is a very tasteful squash. It is cholesterol free. It is saturated, low saturated as far as the fats go. It is very high in vitamin A, C, and B, and great fiber, potassium. So it's a great squash for you to start looking for around this area. Come to our farmers market, and Mr. West may just have a next one at our next one next Thursday. This squash is easy to fix, and selection part of it is pretty easy also. When you're looking for the squash, you can grow your own, but if you're buying one, just make sure you're looking over it just like any squash. You want to make sure you don't have any blemishes, any bruises, because if you do, the squash is going to decay. So you want to just look it over. You're looking for this lovely color, and I want to call it like a tan, a peach color. Some people, it may give an orange, and I don't know if you can see this, but the tip of it even has a green color. So you even see a little bit of green color to this squash. So that's what you want to look for, and very firm. And you can see this is very firm as far as the squash goes. The good thing about this squash is it will store for a many months, as far as several months. So it grows in the summer, and then you pick it, and then you set it in a cool, dry place in your home, and you can use it in October if you wanted to, or you could use it before. But I will tell you, the longer you leave the squash without cutting it, the sweeter it gets. So just remember that too. So what a wonderful squash to buy. If you see one in the grocery store and you want to try it because you're going to like it. It's going to be really tasty. It tastes like between a squash as far as a sweet potato and a kind of a between a pumpkin, but it has a really sweet taste to it. So that's what's so good about it. So when you're looking for it, just think about that, and don't steer away from it just because it's something you've never seen before, because it is a great squash to put on that list to taste. And I always like to taste something new, so here we go. We're going to taste something new. We're going to be making a great, tasty, candied roasted squash with candied squash, and it is going to be so tasty. When we come back, you're going to hear from Frank Hancock, our Agriculture and Natural Resource Agent. He's going to interview Dr. Hinkle from UGA Specialist, and she is going to talk about how to get rid of those pesty pests on our pets. And so you want to really pay attention to that, because I know you'll find out some great information.
Okay, today we're here with Nancy Hinkle. Dr. Nancy Hinkle is an entomologist from the University of Georgia, and she's going to tell us a little bit about insects, and she brought some insects with her. She just finished teaching a lunch and learn, and when I contacted her, I told her we wanted to talk about the insects of pets, meaning dogs and cats and fleas and ticks and that sort of thing. But when I said pet insects, she started talking about tarantulas, and then she's actually brought some tomato hornworms with her that are pets, and along with some mosquitoes and some kissing bugs and some wheel bugs. And so we're sitting here in the middle of her collection. So I'm going to let her tell us about these pet hornworms that you brought with us.
Well, thank you,
brought
Frank.
with you.
Actually, my graduate student Annie keeps these as pets. These are tomato hornworms. Anybody who's ever raised tomatoes is familiar with these. Fortunately, they're harmless to humans. This horn that they have on the rear end is not dangerous. It cannot harm us. We don't really know why they have them. It looks intimidating, but it is not any kind of dangerous. But if you are a tomato plant, you should be very frightened of these hornworms. They will eat up a tomato plant in no time flat.
Now tell us why this one looks a little different than the other one.
This one is already darkening. She's getting ready to pupate and turn into a moth. So by next week or two, she's going to be a moth.
Okay. And the other one's not quite to that stage.
That's right.
Yet.
The other one wants to keep eating.
Okay. In talking about, let's just talk a little bit about ticks and fleas, since that's what we talked about today. Tell us about the main ticks that we have here in Georgia, and what should we be concerned about disease-wise? I know I get a lot of calls from folks that have found a tick for the first time in their life, and they sort of panic over having a tick, and so we get them information so they can deal with their tick problem. But I'm going to let you just tell us a little bit about Georgia ticks.
The most common tick you're going to find on yourself here in Georgia is the Lone Star tick. And the Lone Star tick, which I just lost, is distinctive because the female has a white spot in the back of her back. So that's one that everybody can tell apart because it has the white spot. So that's the Lone Star tick.
That's the Lone Star tick.
There's the Lone Star tick.
The Lone Star tick is on the move.
Yes, she is. And they are very common.
And we'll keep our eye on it so we know where
so it doesn't
is
get away.
at all
That's right.
times here. So.
But they can transmit some disease organisms, so we don't want them feeding on us. The good thing about ticks is if you catch them in time, you can remove them before they transmit any disease agents. And so, Frank, you said you were going to keep an eye on her.
We'll find him later.
Okay. Lone Star ticks can transmit disease agents, so we want to make sure that they don't feed on us for more than 24 hours. The good thing about ticks is it takes them a while to start transmitting disease agents. So if you do a daily tick check, you should be able to remove the tick before it has transmitted any pathogens. What we recommend is if you find a tick on yourself, take it, put it in a Ziploc bag, write the date on there, put it in the refrigerator, not the freezer, in the refrigerator. That way it will be alive, and the pathogens, if it has any, will be there, and the tick can be tested later if you come down with symptoms. If you don't come down with symptoms, don't worry about it. So observe yourself for a month, 6 weeks. If you haven't developed a fever, a rash, or severe aches and pains, don't worry about it. If you develop flu symptoms this time of year, then we do start thinking about possibility of tick-transmitted diseases.
Okay. And I guess if you're going to go outside this time of the year, we've got plenty of ticks.
That's right.
Fleas and chiggers, so you probably want to use something to protect yourself, a spray of DEET or whatever you might have to use, and don't go outside without doing that.
That's right.
Just to keep them off of you. Fleas is another thing. I get calls from people that they've got flea problems. They want to kill all the fleas in the neighborhood, especially in their half acre. And you know, I have to tell them it's a pretty hard thing to do, because a lot of animals, wild animals, stray cats, stray dogs can bring more ticks in, so you'd be a hopeless thing. But there are some things that they can do on the outside and the inside. If you just tell us a little bit about taking care of fleas.
Yep, fleas are a problem. The problem is that our most common flea, the cat flea, is not all that host discriminatory. It will be happy on dogs, it'll be happy on cats, but it also does really well on possums, raccoons, foxes, coyotes, and most everything that's wandering through your backyard at night. So if you've got wildlife in your area, you've probably got fleas. Okay.
And then, so we probably have fleas. So if you wanted to try to control them in the perimeter, say, of your backyard, what areas would you try to concentrate on with an insecticide.
Well, that's a good point, Frank. You want to control them at the perimeter. You're not going to have fleas in any sun area. So if the area is hit by the sunlight anytime during the day, fleas cannot live there.
Okay.
But if you've got a porch or a deck or someplace like that where there's cool, moist air underneath there that doesn't get wind blown very much, that's where fleas do really, really well, especially if that's where the dog spends the hot part of the day.
Right.
So that's where the fleas are going to be developing. So that's where I would treat for fleas.
All right. And then, of course, the dog bedding in those areas
Right.
where the dog stays all the time. If he's got a dog house or whatever,
Right.
that concentrate on those outside. Then when you do wind up with some of them on the inside, I tend to tell people not to start spraying stuff in the house to try to kill fleas, but what would be the best approach?
I agree. Sanitation is really the best thing. A lot of vacuuming, you can suck them up before they turn into adult fleas, kill the larvae, kill the eggs, get them before they turn into blood-sucking adults. Secondly, if you've got a lot of carpeted area, you might consider doing a steam cleaning because steam will kill anything. So it's going to kill the eggs, the larvae, the pupae, and the adult fleas. So that's one way to knock down an infestation really quick.
So you probably kill more with the steam cleaner than you would with the
insecticide. With the insecticide, for sure, yeah.
Okay. And some of the other things that we deal with, I know last year we had a big notification on kissing bugs, and I know you got involved in that, and it started, I think, out at Texas A&M on the TV, people saying they wanted to collect kissing bugs, so everybody's bringing me all sorts of bugs. So I had, I think I saw one kissing bug probably out of 50 bugs that got brought in here. But tell us a little bit about the kissing bugs. And
yeah, we do have kissing bugs in Georgia. We've had kissing bugs forever in Georgia. They've been here a lot longer than human beings have been in Georgia. But we have a lot of relatives as well. So we've got the leaf-footed bugs, we've got the wheel bugs, things that look a lot like kissing bugs and unfortunately get mistaken for kissing bugs, but they're perfectly harmless. Actually, kissing bugs are pretty much harmless here in Georgia because we don't have the same kind of kissing bugs that they have out west. Now, the ones out there, when they kiss, they suck blood, but you don't get the disease from the kissing, from the biting. You get the disease from them defecating into your skin, into the hole, and then you scratch that material down into the hole where they've been sucking your blood. So the problem is really their fecal material. So just don't worry about them unless you're rubbing bug feces into your skin.
okay, so probably a good idea not to keep a kissing bug as a pet.
That's right. That's one I would not recommend.
I would encourage people not to do that. And then, of course, the big news that comes up, and I'll let Ed, one of our hornworms is about halfway across the room over there now, so we'll remember where he is. Maybe he's tracking down that tick that left a minute ago. But so on the mosquito side, the Zika virus and all that's been in the news, and I get calls from people that are trying to fumigate around their house and that sort of thing, which is not very helpful to the problem, and also can do a little harm to some of our honeybees and things that are out there. But just give us a little update on the Zika and the mosquitoes that are spreading that.
Well, you're right. Zika was the hot thing last year, but we've got several other mosquito-borne diseases. We've got dengue, chikungunya, yellow fever, other diseases that are transmitted by mosquitoes that are probably going to be more prevalent and more long-term problems. And we've still got West Nile out there, so we can't forget that. The good thing about these mosquito-borne diseases is that they're all transmitted by the mosquitoes that we have in our backyards, the ones that are breeding right here locally. These are not mosquitoes that are flying in from a mile or two away. If you've got these mosquitoes in your backyard, they're probably being produced right there in your backyard. If you've got a bucket of water somewhere, this is probably what's developing in them. Then those are the mosquitoes that transmit the Zika virus. So we can do something about this. If we go out every Saturday afternoon, or pick whatever day of the week you want to pick, go out, take this, turn it over, dump it, you take care of the problem right there. Thing is, you got to do it every week because these mosquito larvae can turn into adult mosquitoes in about 7 days. So you don't want to allow them any longer than that. Get them dumped out.
And that would include not only places where water collects from rain, but that would also include the dog's pan of water and the cat's pan of water.
And where you've been watering your plants and the saucers underneath your plants, your potted plants. Yep.
So just keep all that under control.
Yep.
And so that's a little summary there. We've got some products here that get used to control some of these insects. This cutter right here, something you spray with before you go outside to keep the insects off of you. The larger containers here of insect repellent that you can put on your clothing. This is permethrin, I believe, and it's not to spray on you, but it can be sprayed on your clothing. And I think there's also companies that are making some clothing now that have this impregnated in it that you can purchase that supposedly lasts for 30 or 40 washing cycles that put it on when you go outside. But I still would spray the bare skin parts. You know, the first time I met Dr. Hinkle, she came here to do a class, and I had been down in Florida where there were lots of mosquitoes, and I had sprayed for the mosquitoes, and I had rubbed it on my arm, but right underneath my arm there was a little strip that I had missed. And I probably had 1,000 mosquito bites in that little strip right there. So when Dr. Hinkle came down, I showed her my mosquito bites. I figured I'd get a little sympathy for getting eaten up by mosquitoes. And no, she said, let me find my camera. I need that for my slide presentation. So that's all the sympathy I got from her for my mosquito bites. And we do appreciate you coming here today and sharing this information with us on some of these issues that come up from time to time with the Extension Office. And right now we're going to go see what Susan is fixing in the kitchen.
Welcome back to Garden Delights. Today we're talking about a squash. It is called a candied roaster squash, and it is new in my recipe, but it's a very tasty squash, and I have a great recipe that I know you're going to like, so please try this when you can buy one when you're out shopping. The squash is not hard at all to prepare, but you will need some type of peeler, and all you do is you just peel the skin off the skin part off the outside of it. And then once you do that, you're going to cut it in half. Lengthwise works really good. And then you're going to scoop it out just like you would do a squash of, you know, if you want to take the seeds out, or even like a pumpkin. When you cut a pumpkin open, you want to make a pie of a pumpkin, you have to scrape all the seeds out and all the sticky part out, the stringy part out. You have to get that part out. Same thing with this squash. And once you do that, you can take the squash and you can make it into a pie. You can bake it, broil it, put it in stews if you wanted to. But today we're going to make a candied squash, and it's really, really simple recipe. It's going to tell you about on the recipe about 12 cups of chopped up squash. So the inside of that candied roaster squash, look, the inside of it, the meat part of it, looks just like this. And all I've done is taken and chopped it off. So you're going to take that and chop it off, and you're going to put it into a dish that has been sprayed. And so I already have my dish sprayed, so you're going to put that in there. And you're just going to try to get all those in there. And you're going to probably need one this size because that's about 12 cups, and so you're going to need one about this size as far as a dish to put it in. And so what you're going to need to do for this recipe, which makes it really simple, is you're going to need a half a cup of sugar, and this is just a regular cane sugar. Then you're going to need a half a cup of brown sugar, and you're going to need 1 stick of butter or margarine, whichever you have at your house. So I'm going to stick that in. Then you're going to need also, you're going to need some orange juice, and this is 1/3 of a cup. So I'm going to go ahead and add that. And then you're going to need some spices to spice it up a little bit. So we have in here, we have cinnamon, ginger, a little pepper, and a little salt. But the salt is really, it's only 1 teaspoon. You have a little bit of cinnamon, which is about 1 teaspoon, and the cinnamon is, the ginger is about 1/4 of a teaspoon, and then you're going to have about 1/8 on your pepper. So your pepper and salt's very limited. So I'm going to put that in there also because I already have that mixed up. And what you're going to do is you're going to take this and you're going to put it on your oven, on the top part of it, of the stove, and you're going to melt your butter with your orange juice with all the other ingredients. And once it's melted, you don't cook it any longer. All you want to do is melt it. Then once you melt it, make sure you stirred it around, make sure it's all melted up. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take this liquid part and you're going to pour over the candied roaster squash. And then you're going to bake this in your oven for about 350 for about 45 to an hour, depending on what you consider as far as the squash being tender, where you want it. And then the last 2 minutes of you cooking this, you're going to add some toasted oatmeal. And this, you could add more. This is about 1/2 cup, but I also added maybe not even 1/4 cup of chopped up pecans that I've roasted also that are mixed into this. And so what you're going to do is you have your liquid you're going to put on there, and then about the last 2 minutes, you're going to add this on the top just to give it a little texture and also a little crunch to the flavor. And so once you get that done, it is going to be so tasty that you'll want to do it again. Not only that, you're probably going to want to try a pie next time when you make one. Take one of these squashes. So just remember, the squash you saw earlier, you can get about 12 cups chopped up from that one. So technically, you could make 2 of these if you wanted to. The good thing about this squash is you can chop it up the day before, so it's already prepared, and all you have to do is put the liquid, mix it together, and pour it on top, and you're ready to go. We'll see you back in just a little bit. Frank and I will be tasting that candied squash. Welcome back to Garden Delights. Well, Frank, this is going to be new for both of us, but it's going to be so, so good. I can smell it.
It smells good. Candy roaster squash.
Yes, and this is
North
candy.
Georgia candy roaster squash.
And I didn't realize this, but they grew the squash around underneath the corn to keep the weeds down, but also it kept the area moist where the corn was, so it would produce both ways, corn and good squash.
So mulch for the corn and squash for this dish right here that we're about to eat.
That's exactly right. And I am so looking forward to this.
Let's quit talking and let's just go ahead and
try
eat
it. All right, there you go. It smells so good. And I know.
I'll tell you what.
Say it's pretty good?
It's real good. It's not pretty good. What's that taste like?
It's hard. It's like a sweet potato.
Mm-hmm.
It's still warm too, isn't it?
It is.
It's like a sweet potato and a kind of a squash together,
A
maybe?
little bit, but not a whole lot of squash taste.
Yeah.
It's got its own special taste.
It does, and it is yummy, and it smells really good too.
Well, we kept the seed out of this one.
I say we try it.
We'll try it next
We will
year.
try it.
Well,
I talked to Nancy Hinkle this time about insects, and she brought them with her. And we had some escape while we were doing it, but it was interesting. She's always interesting. I had caterpillars crawling up my sleeve and mosquitoes flying around, but I think we corralled them all before it was over with.
I hope so. She's really good at explaining.
That should be interesting.
This is really good. You're going to have to check that website out and get this recipe and find you somewhere in Henry County at our farmer's market or somewhere in North Georgia, find you a candied roasted squash, and you've got to try it. It is so, so good.
We got them at the farmer's market.
Exactly.
In fact, that's where we got this.
I did. Mr. West was gentle enough to say, try, and I did, and I'm going to tell him the next time I see him, a winner is right here.
Okay.
Well, Frank and I will see you next time on Garden Delights.
And I'm going to just keep on eating it.